Hey guys, it's mercwri. I have a quick run through of the Mirai machine on HackTheBox. This was a pretty simple machine. It was one of the first machines that I did, and it taught me a good few tricks of the trade. So first, Mirai has a couple rabbit holes that a new user who's overestimating the machine can easily fall down. The first hint is in the name of the machine, which is that if your immediate thought is to research the Mirai exploit, it certainly is a way to get in, but it is the extremely hard way. I was not able to get in with that, but other people, I believe, have verified that they have gotten in with Mirai. So the first thing that I'm going to do is just simply run an nmap on the machine. I'm going to run a SYN scan, or a stealth scan as some people call it, despite that being a misnomer. Um, we're going to set it to fast, and the default settings for this will use the top 1000 ports, I believe, which are going to get you all the all the commonly open ports. It's not going to find anything super strange or super weird. If you don't find anything in this first 1000 port scan and it's on a CTF, you probably want to run an all scan, which is going to take a while and it's going to make a ton of network traffic. So as we can see, scan finished in about 19 seconds. It tells us that out of the 1000 ports it scanned, 97 of them were closed, but 3 very important ones are open. The first is that we can SSH into this box if we know a username and password. We know that it is running DNS mask, which is interesting. It means it's some kind of DNS filtering device, or it's set up to filter DNS in some way. Already kind of gives you a hint knowing that Mirai afflicted Internet of Things and simple machine type devices. And last is a very common and fast avenue of attack, which is that it has port 80 open. It's running a HTTP server, and it's running light HTTPD, which is a simple, fast version of HTTP servers that are run on small, simple, fast devices. So we are going to go and check out 10.10.48, and we get nothing, not a thing. We're going to view source to make sure there's nothing hidden here. On a lot of low-hanging fruit stuff, you will see something hidden here. In this case, there's nothing, so we need to do directory enumeration. The most common tool for that is dirb, which is Dark-Base Reaver. It's a very simple tool. Basically, it's just going to try a whole bunch of common extensions from a word list. I'm just going to run the default word list, nothing special, and see what we get out of it. Now, in this case, I already know where we're going. I've broken this machine a couple times in practice for this and when I originally broke it, and we know that /admin is open. Usually you want to let that run all the way so you can see everything that's there. And let's run /admin, and we can see a lot of my suspicions were correct, that this is a Raspberry Pi set up as a Pi-hole. This is a pretty common setup for them. It's pretty simple to set up, and you can use it to filter out ads. It's pretty common to find these in home networks, especially amongst the more tech set who want to filter their DNS. So what we're going to do now is explore the second rabbit hole, or let you guys know about it. In this case, there's a login to it. You could log into this. Now, there are ways. There is a reset password option, but this requires a shell. I believe there may be an exploit for triggering this remotely. Again, it's not worth going into because that's a pretty common and advanced thing. What you have to think of is when you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. In this case, we just want to research what's the default password for Pi-hole or for a Raspberry Pi. So let's look Pi-hole default password. We're going to see. We're going to check out a forum post. This is usually a good source. And so you obviously need an SSH into the Raspberry Pi to install it, which means that there's probably not, and right here we can see the Pi-hole credentials are separate from the SSH login for a user on the box. So let's look up a default user for Raspberry Pi. So Raspberry Pi default. If I can type right now, login, and we get from the Raspberry Pi documentation itself the default username, which is Pi, and the default password, which is Raspberry. So we're going to SSH Pi at 10.10.48, as we would SSH into any other service we might have legitimate or illegitimate access to, and fire off Raspberry as the password, and we're in. Um, this throws up a header, and this is just a default header. It warns you right off the bat that pi has not been changed and that we should run password to change it if we were a legitimate user of this system. So our next step now is to find the user hash. So we're going to list the contents of this folder, and there's a couple interesting things here. Again, these are stuff that you could end up down a rabbit hole looking at. Again, this is a low-hanging fruit, simple box. There's no reason to go crazy. We're going to look at the user's desktop, and we'll see user.txt is there. And we have the user string to put in if we're looking to earn points on this box on Raspberry Pi if this was still an active machine. Now we're going to try and get root access, and again, this is simple. This is low-hanging fruit. You can run privilege escalation scripts that will look through and tell you what maybe some things that are there that you can exploit. We might look at cron tab, but in this case, and the first thing I do on any machine that I'm breaking into, or any CTF that I'm doing, is probably the right way to say that, is I'm going to run sudo -l. And what that's going to tell me is what I can do with sudo as this user, and if I can even sudo as this user. So in this case, there's some default environment variables, nothing special there, but right here is the gold. In this section I've highlighted, it tells you that you can run any command, and you can run any command with no password as root, as sudo. So we're going to do the simplest, fastest way to do this, sudo su root. And now we have a root shell. Who am I? I'm root. So now I can do cd / list what's here just in case there's anything interesting, and we're going to go into root. And then we're going to look, and here's root.txt. Or is it? This is where this box has ruined a lot of people, caused a lot of posts on HackTheBox forums about what to do. And again, this is overthinking it. So we know based on this that the backup is on a USB stick. We're going to assume in this case, since we can't see the machine, it's somewhere remotely. The USB stick is still physically mounted. So we're going to verify that, which will be done by calling list block, and that'll tell us what devices are there. So here's our main hard drive with our base partitions on it. This is boot and root, or your base partitions, and this shows us we have it, and it's mounted to media/USB stick, which is a default mounting place for USB stick. So we're going to go there, media, USB stick, and we'll list, and we can see there's dammit.txt, which we'll take a fast look at. And what it's stating is that the file was deleted, and they want to know if there's a way to get it back. Now, this is where a lot of people, again, dive down a rabbit hole into looking at ways to do file recovery and all sorts of somewhat advanced stuff. Again, this is not an advanced box. This is a beginner box. This is meant really to do almost basic Linux systems administration stuff on, not necessarily exploitation, now that you're here. So what we're going to do in this case is call the strings command, because we know it is a string of text, and everything in a Linux operating system and a Unix operating system is a file. So if we call strings on dev/stb, we get every string that's on there. So this is telling us in this directory, media USB stick, what's there, and it sees root.txt, it's there. Now we dive down into here, and it's still not there. We continue down, and now this is the root string. This is what we found. This is the same number of characters as we had before. So we know that this is it. That's how you've done it. You at this point have a root shell. I mean, you've had a root shell since we did sudo su root, but we found the target file we were looking for, which was root.txt. This is a machine that is meant to get you thinking that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most true. Thanks guys for watching. I'll have more of these videos coming up. I'm going to go through some of the older machines that are retired that I've done, and I'm hoping as machines get retired to do releases of machines after they've become retired. I'm actually recording this ahead of time for release on Saturday after the new machine comes up, and hopefully I'll have a couple more in the coming weeks for you guys to watch. Thanks for watching.